a standard.
No,
They don't.
okay, they don't.
Obviously, do your best.
All right. Welcome everybody to I don't know what class we're at, 5 or 6, 7, like this.
Class number 5.
We had a large regatta, the invitational regatta last Saturday, and I thought we would do a recap on this regatta since we're all going to be running regattas like this in the future, and probably could do a postmortem on the NOR and SI. And then we'll move into chapter 10 and 11 of the textbook. When I wrote the NOR and SI, of course you do that well in advance of the regatta, and you never know exactly what's going to happen in reality. In my mind, I had the visions of a possibility of 6 nice-sized fleets racing in the regatta, and we have that capacity in the club. We have, as we know, a good-sized Sweet 16 fleet. We have 15 Sweet 16s in this regatta. We have the capacity to have a nice Sea Scout fleet, a Thistle fleet. We have 5 Thistles in the club. Unfortunately, none of them showed up, but we got lasers, and then we got handicap, which we ultimately split up into 2 different fleets, large and small. So we have the capacity to do 6 starts. As reality came, or turned out, we were begging to get Sea Scouts to come out. We didn't have any thistles. We only had 1 laser. So the reality was radically different than what my envision was when I originally wrote the regatta. When I wrote the SI, I put in a lot of provisions to keep the starting line clear so that we could get all these multiple starts going. And for example, I put in a closed line, and we used the I flag as a preparatory flag, which is around the end of the rule. And we have a nice restricted zone, for keeping the area clean. So that way we can get those boats started, because the late starters could be interfered with by early starters coming down the course. Okay, well that was what was in my mind when I wrote all that crap. But the reality is chances are, for at least for the foreseeable future, we will not have large fleets racing in this thing. So in next year's version of this, I'll put it to the board here. What changes would you think we should make for next year's SI? My thinking is we'll probably have something similar like this year. 3 or 4 Sea Scouts. Might have 2 or 3 lasers. Maybe a Thistle or 2.
I think we need to possibly market more to the thistles. Because we got a lot of thistles that come out on Wednesday nights and race. Why didn't they come out on this one?
Busy and other commitments.
I think there was
Was
a
there
thistle race or something in
thistle
Wichita
race
for
in
the.
Wichita?
I believe so. That's what I heard.
Oh, okay.
That
Okay,
so that might have
convenient
been why.
for them.
That's
Okay.
why they went someplace else.
Well, you really can't give 3 boats their own start. I would really limit it to you got to have 5 or 6 boats to justify their own start. So that means you're going to be combining a lot of different fleets into a start. Mathematically, it barely works out to get 4 starts in the amount of time that we've got. We could do 4 starts with 4 races. It's tight as a drum, but it would be possible. 3 starts makes it a lot easier to deal with.
With the skill, sorry.
Yeah.
With the skill level of the sailors we have in the club and those visiting, how large of a starting lineup do you think is feasible? I mean, we're not talking about super skilled sailors for the most part, who could handle a 40 line start, 40 boat start or 20 boat start. Where do you think, in your mind, are you thinking for our club for the next few years? You're saying 4 starts. How many boats in a start would we be comfortable and do a good job with?
I would say I didn't think the 15 Sweet 16s had any problems starting. So yeah, I would say 15,
Good number.
12, 10 to 15 would be a comfortable number.
Yeah, because we can adjust the line distance
Yeah.
accordingly.
And that's
If
what
we-
something
if
is
we
chapter
would've
10.
if we would have had a shorter line for the Sweet 16s, if we would have brought that hippity hop in, then the 15 boats would have been a problem. It would have been crowded. But we can extend that line out. If
The
we
only
know.
class that had a problem starting was the cruiser class in the second race, and the wind picked up and they were all early. And
Yeah.
2 boats had to go around the pin. But that was about a 50, 60-yard starting line. There's last
That
week.
was a
There
long
was
starting line.
Plenty of line.
Well, that's
So,
in
but that,
chapter 10. There's a
it-
formula for determining the proper length of the line.
Yeah.
It is 1.25 times the length of the boat times the number of boats. For example, a Sweet 16, if you're starting Sweet 16s, so 1.25 is 20 feet per Sweet 16 times 15 Sweet 16.
15 boats.
So the formula that line should have been about 300 feet long.
Which we don't have enough lake for.
So the lines are actually supposed to
300 feet,
be.
it's only 100 yards. Remember that.
Yeah.
'Cause we had it out at least 100 yards.
So
That first start.
Yeah, I don't think the line was.
I thought it was about
I
75.
was going to say,
Maybe
yeah,
75.
But
I'll lay odds it was a good 100.
it was the biggest one I've seen since we've been here. But I
That's
don't
why.
think it
That's
was
why I was
It-
asking for
the lines.
that,
The lines should be longer than you normally think.
Yeah.
yeah,
And-
more is better.
Yeah.
Because you can. That's why I was asking for the rangefinder.
Yeah.
If we had a rangefinder, very easy to put it on the hippity hop and back, and hey, it's right on.
Right.
Is this something that we ought to put on the Christmas list for the
It's
race
about
committee?
$35. It's not that big of a deal.
I'll put it on the wish list. Why not?
Yeah.
If you really want to do it, you know
Pick it up at
the
golf shop.
mast height of a boat, and to send him out there, you take a piece of paper and you put a notch in it, and when it fills up the paper, that's the length of your line. That's what it says in the race committee manual with how to do it. How to get a line long enough. Well, you get a boat with a known mast height, and you send him out so far with this little notch, and when he disappears, you got your distance. See,
But a rangefinder.
but a
would be-
rangefinder would work,
Well,
you know.
Sure.
Yeah.
would be real
Like I
good.
But,
said, you can pick it up at anywhere, like
Yeah.
Walmart or any golf shop.
Doesn't have to be a real high
It
dollar.
doesn't have to be a high dollar one. I mean, it's
And the way to do it is
$25.
with the John boat.
Yep.
As you're setting the mark, John boat stationary, you hit them with the rangefinder, and it says 85 yards, and you can say another 15, come back or whatever. There.
Exactly. And we can do that even for the long hauls.
Yeah.
1.2 miles.
The-
It will go up to 2 miles.
Right. I don't know that with the aggressiveness of our club that we really need to have a closed line.
That was the
I
next thing was
would keep
On a Sunday or?
No, for this
for
event.
this
I would
regard.
keep the high flag,
Yeah.
and I
Keeps
would
that
get
line
rid
nice and clean.
of the
Sure
closed line. The high flag, the only person to come back who didn't have to was sitting next to me.
Yeah. Well, I saw the individual recall, and I thought I was below the line,
You
but
were, well, what it was the guys coming back.
oh, okay.
I
See,
thought the
that-
closed
see-
line was a good idea.
You see, that's the
we stayed away from the
that's the
start.
fallacy of the
and then worked
individual
ourselves in.
recall flag is the people that are starting aren't looking up the lake for somebody coming down. They're looking over here to the committee boat. Well, am I over? Well, no, you're not. But we got two guys that got to go around the ends to restart. But every rule has its drawbacks.
Yeah.
So, but I'd get rid of the unclosed line and keep the I flag.
Keep the I flag.
Keep the I flag up and then close and get rid of the clothesline.
Is there a way to do a clothesline where you have like it's got to stay back 30 feet between
We've
the start
got a
box?
restricted area.
You still have a restricted
You can
area?
have still
Isn't that
have a
closed
restricted
line?
area. Yeah.
No,
No.
No,
Oh, what am I
restricted
thinking then?
line is not a
line that you can't
go
sail
back through
through.
the start line.
Oh.
You have to go around.
If,
When you're going to
you're
the
above the
Yeah,
line,
yeah, when you're
you gotta
sailing
go
course.
around the ends,
Okay.
and you can't go through it coming downwind. When
Well, I
there's-
didn't see any advantage to going. Oh, when you're coming downwind.
you
Yeah,
gotta
see,
you gotta go around the
we
pin
had
of the
a
committee boat.
Yeah.
So
We had a situation on the first race where we didn't close it quick enough, and there was a couple of boats that actually passed and had to adjust course around the start line. And then we brought it in, and some of the other boats went, was able to skim past it.
because we had that Morgan starting
We
out.
we shortened
Shortened
the
the start
course
line?
line, the start
The
line
finish line?
Okay.
after the last start.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we had a late starter, so we couldn't move it until he started.
Sure.
Now, I will also give you a fallacy of making a rule on a rule. The line was closed, and we had a restricted area, so many feet in front of the starting line and
Right.
so many behind. Okay, we're running a race, and the fourth start gets screwed up, and we've got to postpone. The guys coming down can sail through the line, because there ain't no line.
Because there ain't no line.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, because of postponing.
Because of the
And if the guy's really smart, we got that 1 minute.
Yeah.
The guy could be coming down and get his watch. Aha! I got a minute. He can sail right through there.
Well, then that's a argument for keeping the line closed.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
those.
But no, it don't work. There's no line.
Well,
Yeah,
no,
there's
no,
no
We're,
line.
we're, we're
Once you
a
call
minute
postpone,
between
there is no
starts. Remember, we just start the Sweet 16.
yeah.
We got 1 minute before we put up the next flag. So there's no line for the minute, and there's no line until the I flag goes up.
Okay.
So you got a 2 minute
Window.
gap window in the rules that there is no line. So when you build a rule, but I don't think anybody but us would even
Yeah.
realize that.
Yeah.
See? So that's
if you build your course long enough, they won't
Yeah.
be able to get
They're
around
not
And
it.
actually, an open line, with any kind of luck, nobody is going to be there. But people who are starting, they expected, the only people that ever closed the line was the Midwest. And that was
Well, Perry.
that was a,
over Perry, it's common that the line is
yeah,
closed.
but they're Midwest.
Oh yeah. Okay.
In the middle, I sailed when we had Opties in Massachusetts. We had 240 boats. The line was open.
Really?
Yes,
Ooh,
So you had people just going all over the
all
place.
over the
They
place,
just said, look out, huh?
look out. Now the difference was the courses were a little different, but I did the Whale of a Sail, and I was one of the judges down for the nude, where they had 88 big boats. Line's always open. Especially when you got multiple courses. Some guys are doing triangles, some guys are doing Fs, some guys are doing Is,
Right.
and there's usually one leeward mark or a gate.
Gotcha.
That way. Now,
Yeah.
go down and do that now. So it isn't a real problem, but it's just something that we just have to be better race management when we set the course up.
So what have we decided here? What have we come around to this
Yeah,
idea?
We come around to the fact that, if it's best not to have a closed course,
Okay. Best not to have it
but
if we don't
still
have,
have
But we still need the
Restricted
restricted
areas.
areas so that they've got room to start.
Right. Keep
I like
keep
that.
keep those
Next
non-starting boats
Yeah.
out of the area.
Yeah, I like
And
that.
if you do it right, it starts off before the next boats come in. And this is what I told the committee. The first race is going to be a guess.
Right.
We're going to guess how fast the
Yeah.
leading boats can be in these wind conditions, and we're going to adjust after that.
And then all the rest of the races are adjusted based on what you learn from the first race.
And we learned that the closed course caused problems, so we opened
So
it
we
up
opened
for
it
the
up.
last three.
and if there's a provision for changing on the water.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
I-
They couldn't read my writing. I don't understand.
well, yeah, I couldn't read the writing,
Four
but
starts or three?
It's 4 stars.
4 starts. Yeah.
Or no,
three starts.
Three
Three
starts.
starts.
When we go
Three
to
starts,
4
4
starts, and it's a 42-minute race and 3 laps, somebody helped me do the quick math.
Yeah. You gotta-
15, less than 15
You got to have
minutes,
You got to have
longer
longer
races.
courses.
Yep.
Yeah.
You have to be
You
longer
got to have a
races.
longer course.
which takes longer than an hour, 45 minutes.
Well, it depends. You can also run a different course. I wanted to run committee boat, mark, round, and finish downwind. But Sunday's wind and direction didn't let us do that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things you can do to mitigate the circumstances. Also, having a starboard course was better
Yeah.
than the port course, because when the wind gave us that, we took it.
Right.
And there's a lot of clubs that will not run starboard courses no matter what it is. Why do you do it?
Well, the Thistle Fleet, isn't it in their bylaws? It's always port course. I believe it is, but nonetheless,
Well,
we'd have to worry
and that's
about
something
that.
we was going to talk about tonight. Rule 18.3 on starboard roundings. But anyway, I guess the end result here is that kind of a sweet spot is three starts, 4 races, and everything works out pretty well.
And drive for 3/4 of an hour usually
Yeah,
for the first boats.
and then the last boats are finishing at right at about an hour. The stragglers come in at 60 minutes or so, and there's enough time to get the day in. So
The big lifesaver was lunch on the water.
Yeah.
uh, that I thought that was a
Kept
home
things
run.
moving.
Well, if you got to bring everybody in, get them all to eat, go through the chow line or whatever, you're killing a minimum of an hour and a half, really closer to 2 out of the day.
With no
So-
dock space.
Yeah.
Right.
Now that's another thing. I was anticipating a lot of issues with getting boats into the water. We had 30 boats, but we had 2 hour or an hour and a half to get them in the water. I thought that weren't really smooth. I didn't think there was any particular
I
issues.
totally agree.
Especially by having all the cruisers across the lake.
Yeah,
that helped out a lot.
that
Yeah.
did help.
bigger boats.
So we had an hour and a half to get all the small boats in the water. I think everything
If
worked
we
out real
have
smooth.
more cruisers across the lake, we need more shuttles to get people
I
back
agree.
and forth, because I
Next
wasn't able to go help out with the setting of the marks because
Right.
we were ferrying people back and forth.
Yep.
So
I
if we
agree.
could have separate boats do that ferrying
Next year,
part,
make a note.
that would be
Would it be
beneficial.
possible to rent one of the John boats from the marina there
Oh, yeah.
for that day?
Yeah, we've
As
done
a
that.
shuttle boat?
Yeah.
That's something to think about.
We have to assign a person to go do that, obviously, but yeah.
Right,
But that is a good point, Adam.
yeah.
We'll plan earlier and better. Because I won't be in charge, somebody else will be the comment.
You didn't?
Okay. Well, anyway, that kind of wraps up our post-mortem.
Was there anything else out of that race that you saw?
The only complaint that I heard during the sit around coffee table type talk, and I don't know the gentleman, so I don't know if he was just edging
Okay.
or whatever, because I've never seen him before. But he said, well, I was thinking about complaining to the committee about the rules said there would be 4 different races, and we did the same race on 3 and 4. And I don't know if he was just joking, because I don't know the guy. I mean, it's
There
just,
was nothing in sailing instructions about 4 different races.
Oh,
There's 4 races are scheduled,
Yeah.
and,
no,
he might thought maybe he wanted different courses.
that was the impression that
Could
I
be
got
could be
from it.
different courses, right?
Right.
If he would just move the lake 35 degrees to the right,
We could have done
I
that.
will run him.
All kinds of different.
And some people don't understand the limitations you've got to starting, finishing, and running a fair race.
Well,
So
That-
but
That
that's
is interesting, though, that he would want.
yeah. And,
4 different.
and to be quite honest with you,
ones. I didn't
if
see
that
it.
was the only
I don't
grumble
see it.
that I heard,
There'd be a
and
lot
I
of
think out
thinking.
of 200 people competing at an event, if you only hear one grumble, you're
Yes.
golden.
Get him another beer.
Yeah, exactly. Here,
Exactly.
go,
Hey,
go.
on us, you know?
Right, right.
Which brings up the question. I had Fred sail by and ask for a redress. Did he come up to anybody after the race?
he came up in here and said, I don't want it.
Oh, he did.
Yeah,
he did make it up.
Didn't make any
Okay.
difference. He won by 1 point anyway.
Okay.
But I wasn't going to give him redress because he was within 50 feet of the committee boat, and the line was another 60 yards that way. He was going to have to come around the committee boat or go way out there. So we didn't hurt him. But they didn't realize the line was closed until they saw the John boat out there waiting.
Okay.
Mm, mm.
Okay.
And you could see this, oh shit, because the guy with the spinnaker was looked up and said, oh, and he started dropping the chute.
Right.
And I don't know which boat it was, but then Fred likes to complain, and he said, "Oh well, I could have gained the boat." No, Fred, you finished
Well, the thing
behind
is,
him
I
anyway.
didn't see anybody out there, even Fred, having a red flag.
He doesn't have
I
to.
lost
Oh,
mine 20 years ago.
Well, he's under 16 feet.
Yeah.
It's not required for him. Now,
Oh, it's not.
Right.
John would have had to fly a flag
Okay.
for protest or redress. 16 feet and under a
I
hail
thought it
is
was
sufficient.
I thought it was 18.
But when,
but,
when- I can go look it
yeah.
up, but
I think it's 18.
yeah.
Is it
I think
18?
the Sea
Okay.
Scout, remember we had him
the
on
Sea Scout is just under
20.
the limit.
Yeah.
So, but
I always had to use a red flag.
Well, but if
well,
it's over the limit, you do have to have a flag.
But I took notes when it was happening, and I put it on the tape recorder, and that's what you go back to.
Yep.
The tape
I thought it was
recorder
fun
helped.
watching the Caprice. We had enough wind for those to get up and move.
That one lady was really good.
Yeah.
She didn't miss many
Shifts.
shifts at
No.
all
Yep.
with that boat.
I took them out for their check ride. They
They
had
taught
forgotten
you to
so
think.
much about sailing that I'll ever know.
Who taught who?
Oh, I'm telling you, it was embarrassing.
But
She was calling wind shifts. We weren't 10 feet out of the dock, and she was, she could call the shift.
so
I'm
There
with
it
her.
is.
You
But,
need a crew? Let me know.
All right.
Okay, all right. So let's move on to coursework. Starting line. That's kind of one of the things in the chapter 10, and a perfect starting line. If we have the wind direction coming straight down the line, the perfect starting line is going to be at an exact 90-degree angle to the wind. And the number one mark is going to be directly upwind at 90 degrees of the line, and that way a boat sailing the number one leg will spend equal amounts of time on each tack to get to the number one mark. Of course, that is total fantasy. It will never happen.
Yes, it is. Especially when you're on the committee boat and Tacoma winds are
Clocking all over the place, right?
Right.
spinning you around in circles.
But that is the ideal. Number one mark at exactly 90 degrees to the start line. Start line exactly square to the wind. What you end up having to do is kind of guesstimate the amounts of oscillation of the wind, and then try to pick out a rough middle of the oscillations, and then set your line the best you can. On Jacomo, it is not uncommon for this wind to cycle all the way around at 180 degrees. And it has happened numerous times. If you do have a line that is substantially out of square, the best thing to do is postpone and then reset,
Which we've done.
which we do regularly. Yes, sir.
If your number one mark, the windward mark, is pure north, is it 000 degrees or 360 degrees?
Whatever you want.
I would choose 360.
I would do the 360.
Instead of 000 because
I just thought there was a rule.
yeah,
I don't know of any rule that says you have to
One or the other.
one or the other.
But 360 would be preferable.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an actual number. So yeah.
Right.
And we did move the starting line and kept it square for the races. The worst race was number one when the wind went
Yeah.
back right for the second start, and we couldn't change it. But the other two were dead abeam on the committee boat. Plus, we also were smart enough to put 2 anchors down so the committee boat didn't drift, and we put the life jacket flag up.
Life jacket flag is good.
Which was-
had to yell at a lot of people to put
Yes.
their life jacket
That
flag.
We had to dig to find one.
That was imperative. I mean, out there we had boats go over. I mean,
Oh yeah. The way I kind of eyeball the pin, where to place the pin, is I do this. Here's my wind. I'm cycling back and forth, and then 90 degrees over, and then that's where I want to set the pin.
Okay.
Keep in mind that you can also adjust the boat. Or the committee boat, either let out or take in road on the committee boat and make an adjustment. So don't forget, you don't always have to adjust the pin. You can adjust the committee boat.
But maybe what we need to do is not put out the whole road then.
We didn't.
Yeah, we did. We put it
No, we
all-
still got another 30 feet of extra line.
We had extra line. Okay.
When you put it to the yellow ball, there's a knot in the line with a loop. You
Right.
tie it there, you still got 30 more feet of line you can still attach to it to play with. And we've done that for a reason. It also helped when we had to go rescue the guy. We didn't have to wait and pull up the anchor. We just slipped it and let the float it and went down and rescued him.
That's true. Yeah.
But that's why you got it on there,
Okay.
is to play with it. And the easy way, if you're in doubt with square, stand on the front of the committee boat and side across. The worst that could happen, if you sided across the front of the committee boat and the pin was right there, you'd be 8 feet to windward is all.
Oh.
And that's
That's nothing.
not in the real world.
Well, there's so many oscillations that
Yeah, but
8 feet's not going. You're not going to be
Let's
able
say
to
a
tell.
typical good solid Giacomo,
Yeah.
with shiftless day.
Yeah.
But if you don't know where 90 is, stand at the committee boat. The key is to stay there through a wind cycle, and the railing goes 10 feet behind the mark, and the wind comes back and you're even, and then the railing goes 10 feet in front of the mark. That's about as good as you're going to get.
Okay.
And that's just everywhere. I've sat there on race committees where the guy wasted an hour trying to get a perfect line. And the sailors don't care. They'd rather race
Right.
Yeah.
and sit there, do nothing. So
Yeah.
get it good, and then if you can improve for the next race, do it. Do it when they're gone.
Right.
Or unless, again, if you have
If
such
you
a
really got
radically
it, really got it bad,
so
you
then
can postpone.
You can remember you can postpone clear up to the start. Once you have dropped the warning flag and the race has started, then your only option is to abandon that race
Right.
and then start a new race.
Yep.
But you can postpone right up to within a nanosecond of dropping the warning flag.
The warning flag or the class flag?
Warning. Well,
Well,
warning.
it
flag,
is the class flag.
Yeah, the correct term for it is the warning flag. or the class flag if you want to say. But anyway, so we got that.
Okay.
In the book, it also makes note that if we're going to have a restricted area, it has to be listed in the sailing instructions, and we do have that in the sailing instructions.
Isn't there in there where you have to have the course posted in the same rule?
Yeah. Well, it's the course has to be posted no later than the warning flag.
That's what I thought.
Let's see. I've got it here. Rule 27.1 requires course designation before the warning signal. So once once you can put the come within hail flag up, but before you drop the come within hail flag and put the warning flag up, you have to actually designate a course, F course, C course, whatever you're going to say.
Gotcha.
That's,
Generally, we try to do that before you bring the come within hail, just so that they
Yeah.
call
We
them
try
over.
we try not to be too previous, so that if we put a course down and the wind changes and you got to change it, people never see the change.
Sure.
They always see the first one.
Right. Okay.
Now, if we get, or you need the 4 starts, we've got room on the committee boat to do 4 vertical, 1, 2, 3, and 4. But let's say that we wanted to do 6 starts. You post the 4 that are on there. And after race number 1, you take the 1 off the board.
Four.
Then the number 2, you take the 2 off the board. And then when you go to 3, you put 4 and 5 up there. So you go down and then you bring back. And you've done it long enough that 4 and 5 were posted before their warning signals. So that's what you got to do.
Okay.
But there is no sound signal for changing course.
Really?
So that's why you want to be really obvious as hell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We didn't really try to outguess them. We really try to do everything we can to assist the competitors fairly under the rules.
and not be too cagey.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, you don't need to be smart.
Yeah.
Mother Nature takes care of all that shit on the race course.
Right.
We cannot move the starting line after the preparatory signal goes up.
Gotcha.
So once the P flag or I flag or whatever we're using goes up, the starting line has to be set. If you need to change the starting line after the preparatory signal, then you got to go to postpone.
But let's say that you don't, and the first class gets off and it's really shitty. Then what you want to do is you abandon them.
Okay.
And while the abandon flag is up, they're all coming back to restart. Then you make your changes, and as soon as everybody gets behind the line and you got your change made, abandon comes down, and 1 minute later your warning signal goes up. You don't have to postpone after you recalled them. You just leave the flag up. If the sound signals, they come back, you do all your fiddling before you start over again.
In other words,
abandon is 3 horns.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the checkered flag.
Blue and white checkered flag.
Okay.
The abandoned flag would be the same thing as dropping the come within hail flag, and that's so it starts the starting sequence again. So anyway,
Okay.
Again, you can't move the starting line after the preparatory signal goes up, and you can't and you do have to have the course designation, I course, C course, whatever you're running, before the warning flag goes up.
And you really need to read the flags in the back of the book.
Right.
People thought when we abandoned a month ago, they all went into the dock and thought it was over for the day. No,
Yeah.
the abandonment just means that race is abandoned. Stand by for further signals.
Gotcha.
If you want to abandon for the day,
You got to add
You
that
put-
little flag underneath it, right?
code flag H, which is white and red. And that says all further signals would be made ashore. So, but since we abandon so seldom, it's become a mindset that you're done.
Well,
I think the
it
weather
might-
It was a
also
lucky
did that.
thing.
Well, no, I understand it, but we're talking about rules today.
Yeah, that's right.
And the other one is N over A, which means all races are abandoned, period.
And we're done.
So you got 3 abandons, one is going to be on shore, you send people back for bad weather,
It's those
and
one.
then the other one is kaput. So, but that's a change from then years ago, you just used to have abandoned. It
Right.
was one signal, and that was all there was to it. I think this is yours.
No,
That's
Wes is.
This is
numbered.
mine.
Yeah, that's last year, last squad. Okay, there is a formula again for setting the length of line, and that is 1.25 times the length of the boats that's in question. So for a Sweet
Right.
16, that's 20 feet
Okay.
times the number of boats.
Okay.
And that is what they recommend, and then you adjust from there. So if it's a very windy conditions, then you want to lengthen it, the line, and then you could bring it in a little tighter if depending on other conditions. If you didn't think you needed that long a line.
The contestants will tell you
Yeah.
how good you're doing.
That's what I'm worried about.
And if you're really got a long line, and people are either big or small boats, it is very difficult for them to see where the middle of the line is.
Right.
They can see the committee boat and the flag, but they may, even if you had a cruiser at the other end, they may not be able to see just the line down there and all the sails. It's been pretty much common practice to have a midline boat
Or
in
or
the-
mark.
or a mark in the middle.
Yeah.
If it's a boat, it's 2 people, one facing the pin and one facing the committee boat with radios. And they tell you who's over early in there. And the key is that if you're over there, you can go through the line inside your first boat, but then you can come and go around him and start. So but when we did went on Chesapeake Bay, they refused to have a midline boat for 150 starters, and the tide went out, and 40 boats were over. And under the Opti rules, you took 20%, and it was race committee error. It wasn't the contestants. When I went down and did the Y-Flyer Nationals with 60 boats down in someplace in Texas, and he had a midline boat, and everybody loved it. Bob Goff was the race committee chairman, and Bob Goff is very authoritarian, twice as authoritarian than I am. And he said,
That's all right.
he said, "It is my boat in the middle. You will not hit it." But it was good starts. We had boats lined up. You could have taken a picture, and it was straight for 300 yards.
Nice.
A midline mark or a midline boat is not part of the starting line.
No.
So if you go up there and bump that mark or whatnot, there's no foul. And you don't sight, through the midline mark. You sight to the pin because again, that midline mark or boat, whatever it is just a courtesy item, just to help guide, help the
Right.
competitors
And the race committee.
and the race committee.
Yeah, 'cause they're calling who's it off, right?
Yeah.
Who's ahead over
Yeah.
the line.
Right. Keep in mind, remember the committee boat itself is a mark of the course as well as the pin. The anchor road or anything attached to the committee boat is not part of the mark. So if somebody touches the anchor road, no foul.
Okay.
Somebody hits the committee boat, then they have to do their 360 penalty turn. If they touch the john boat, which happens to be tied up to the committee boat, no foul. The committee boat, the john boat, is not attached to the. Is not part of the mark.
Okay.
Several years ago, we had a little inflatable raft that we were using, and we'd hang it off the back of the committee boat. It was kind of a standoff mark, and sometimes in races, committee boats will put a standoff mark behind the committee boat,
Yeah.
keep them from getting too close. If they touch that standoff mark, it's not part of the. It's not the. It's no foul. It's not part of the mark.
Okay.
Usually in really big boats,
Yeah.
because collisions are very expensive.
Sure. So in
Well,
that
maybe
case,
it'd
you might
be a good idea to have the john boat then 5 feet back a little further,
Could be. You know, we
and
could.
just leave it like that so there's
But we
no,
haven't had
there's
any
no
problems.
collisions.
Yeah.
We came close. There was a couple
that were
of them that
close, yeah.
came close the other
Right.
day. I think you came in.
He always comes
Within
in
5
super
feet.
close.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. I do that on purpose. Anyway.
I know you did.
Let's see. Okay. We in our club, I don't ever remember doing a downwind start. Is there any particular reason why we don't do any downwind starts?
No,
We didn't rule against it, or does it
No, we
always have to be up?
No, you can set the. We can set the mark down here, the number 3 mark, and you got a number 2 mark here, and start
How do you
start
rough
downwind.
up before the starting line? You know, if you're
You
getting-
don't. You gotta time it just right.
Yeah.
That might be why we don't do it, because it's harder to make a start like that.
Yeah. Now,
You're a lot more over the line.
Sure.
yeah.
Or way back.
Yeah, we're real late starting. But we might throw some downwind starts in on occasion, just
That may not be a bad idea.
just for fun.
Yeah.
We did some match racing a few years ago for the Wyatt Cup events, and for a couple of years we did reaching starts on both of those. The first leg was a reach, and then it was the course was. It was a reach, and then it was an I course. So you went up and down. So you came up, and you went up and down, and then back. It finished on a
Oh.
reach.
Yeah.
So that's
So your start line was over here, going.
yeah. The start line was like the committee boat was here and the pin was here. So it was a reach. And the wind is here. So you're on a 90-degree reach to a pin, and then you had
then
to
you
go down.
you went to port and jibed, went downwind, then went upwind, went around the windward mark, came
And
down,
and then-
jibed, and went and finished.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
it was an interesting thing,
Oh, that one. Yeah.
It was like 12-minute races.
Sure.
and it was a match race, so it was just 2 boats.
Oh, I can see that would be good for 2 head-to-head competition like
yeah.
that.
It was just a unique
They were
race
trying
course.
to get more interest.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you are stuck on places that you must do a reaching start, the way you do it is you move the pin way ahead of the committee boat, so that when they start on a reach, it's square to the wind. It's not square to the first mark,
Oh,
but let's say the wind is from Mark to him. You'd have the here, and the committee boat would be way back here, and this is your line, and they're going that way. If you don't, if the mark is here, and the committee boat is here, everybody's going to
be right at the pin.
be
or
at the
something.
pin. So that's how you try to equalize situations.
okay.
But off wind starts are possible.
Sure.
There's nothing particular.
They are acceptable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or they're allowed.
Rare.
I was just saying,
Rare, but acceptable.
Yeah.
That really confuse everybody, I'm sure, because it's so rare.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Especially if we threw in a downwind mark, no one in the club would know what to do with it.
No.
Agreed. It's just not done.
yeah, we just don't do it.
Okay.
But anyway, we don't really have any current to deal with. They in Chapter 10 they talk a lot about dealing with current.
Yes.
Fortunately, with us,
Only if the dam breaks,
yeah.
and it's very,
That's
very,
every man for-
very short-lived.
Yeah.
They will have occurrence.
There is what they call a jackrabbit start,
Mhm.
and it's something that I have been pushing for the Wednesday night races.
Yeah.
And it's usually used really for very casual racing. And you don't need a committee boat or anybody to do it. The racers can take care of that all themselves. So what a jackrabbit start is you go out there and you set a start pin. Just throw a start pin out there in the water someplace, and then you'll have a windward mark and a leeward mark. Usually the best racer in the group is designated the jackrabbit. Okay, and what the jackrabbit does is as he starts off over here,
Behind the pin.
behind the pin, and he sails on a port tack across the starting area as it is. Everybody else is lined up over here on a starboard tack. Once he clears the pin, and there's some room here behind him and the pin, these guys can start taking off. So as he makes more and more advancement on port tack and makes more space here, these guys are taking off. And then once the last guy is able to clear the pin and his transom, then he is released, and he can do whatever he wants to do. He can continue on port tack, he can turn and go on starboard tack, and then you do your race, and then you finish by just coming up here someplace close to the pin.
Okay.
It is very casual, very easy for folks to conduct a nice race and have no official committee vote.
Would you use that with cruisers more than 16?
Anybody.
Anything.
Any of them?
Yeah.
Anybody.
Okay.
You would want to set, if there's a great, huge disparity between, the speed of the boats. Like you got a Sea Scow and you got a
Bubbles Yankee.
then your fast boat would be your Rabbit,
Okay.
and then everybody else can take off. But that is a particular possibility for doing
Okay.
very casual races where you don't really have a race committee. You're not keeping score. You're not timing anything, but you are doing a nice race.
That's kind of like what we do on Saturday mornings when we have the students out and we run run their courses. That's kind of what we're doing.
You know.
It's kind of doing the same thing. Not a specific race,
Yeah.
but that's kind of what we're doing.
Before you take your exam, you're going to be invited or volunteered to go on other race committees off of this lake.
Okay.
And this is where you
That's
get
right.
another education. Because everybody has their own style of running races. And sometimes they're a little closer to the rule book, and sometimes they're not. But that's all part of the learning curve. And they will probably ask you questions. They have a problem, and you say, well, if you did this, maybe that wouldn't have happened. Sometimes that's well received. Sometimes it's not. But that doesn't mean it's right or wrong. The lake that Pete Pierce was on, Weatherby, they use the recorded sound. They say, well, the sound counts and not the flag. Well, the reason they do that, their flags are 6 inches square. Their course board is only that wide.
Oh, wow.
You cannot sail by unless you get within 5 feet of the committee boat. And their answer was, well, everybody knows what course we sail. It all falls back on everybody knows. Well, I ran races up there and everybody doesn't know. So, but
And
it's
it's not
just,
the part of the rules.
not part of the rules.
It's not the rules.
And
Yeah.
the worst thing is if somebody really protests, you throw them out there just all indignant. Well, what did you do that for? Well, it said you were over early. The flag. Oh no, the sound signal. No, it's the flag. When I did the regatta up there, I was the only person here in protest because they were all friends, and they didn't want to throw their buddy out.
Yeah.
I did it between the Pierce family, boys.
Yeah.
In Jefferson City, they race on a very small lake.
Yeah.
And it's only a few members, and they have an electronic. Because in a semi-jackrabbit, it always seemed like the jackrabbit had a bit of an advantage, and so, or like there should have been a minute to the horn, and if he was up in a good position, it might have been 45 seconds. And so they said, "Well, we'll fix this."
Well, there's no.
And so they have an electronic now on a float,
Yeah,
stick, and it.
For the jackrabbit, there's no horn for the jackrabbit. He can't tack until everybody's cleared.
Right, that's true. And a
So, but
jackrabbit start.
on the recorded ones, it says 1 minute to beep, and then it says 30 seconds beep, warning signal beep, and then it says preparatory signal. Then it counts down 1 minute to start, beep, 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 start. And I think that's great, as long as you don't get too serious about it, because the rule book says it's the flags. So, but the further you get up the food chain, usually the closer they get to the rules.
Gotcha.
But the thing about it is, if you can sail on Jacomo, you can go any place else and work on the race committee and sail and be up to speed. You don't have to apologize for anything.
Because we do it.
We do it as close as we can.
I like it that way.
Sometimes the race committee does stuff that isn't in the rule book. Can you be protested? Yeah, but they got to prove it prejudiced them. Just because the race committee makes an error, like not getting that line in fast enough Saturday, well, what did it affect? Nothing, because you were next to the committee boat and you had to go around the committee boat. It was still further to go out to the pin, so you didn't lose anything. Now, the race committee boat breaks anchor, and they call you over early. Oops.
That makes sense.
Because, well, sometimes the race committee doesn't know the anchors come loose.
Sure.
They're sitting watching other stuff, and here comes everybody up, and the guy says, "God damn, they're getting here quick." Well, they're getting here quick because
You're moving.
the anchor came down. So you got to be on your toes on a committee boat. You have time between races where you can talk about how we're going to improve the next race. And that's really important that it's a team effort. One guy or girl has to make the final decision. But you can say, okay, what can we do next time to make this better? If the wind would have shifted another 5 or 10 degrees to the right, we would have given them another different course than when they got. But it's just, I don't know how much better you get for this lake with as many different classes of boats. Now, if we were only racing the 16s, we would have had a lot more latitude on moving stuff around. But you just don't. You're stuck with what the race committee walks up and the guy says, "Here's your starting order and here's your fleet." Okay? And then, oh, by the way, 42 of them haven't checked in.
Yeah.
That was our big thing
No,
Saturday was,
no.
despite being told you needed to check in, and I am not sharp enough to identify boats with just white sails, what
Right.
kind of boat it is.
Right.
Right.
Much who's even driving it. See?
Especially
But I assume
with
that-
so many new
I assume
new
that
faces. Yeah.
Racing, and you write them down, and you just do it. It's like the guy being late. He was entitled to start, even though he was late under the rules. So everything has to stay the same until they get across the
Till he
line.
got there.
And then- So there are parameters you got to work in, but you do have a lot of latitude. And I think we got really good sailing instructions to let you do stuff like that. So,
Agree. I think it worked
Um,
well and covered all the bases.
the in the book it talks about setting exact isosceles or equilateral triangles for the courses and whatnot. We are fairly laxed on getting an exact isosceles triangle.
Right.
We get close, but we're not doing any technical measuring of the lengths of in particular legs.
if you
We just get close to.
if you're worried about that, in the back of the manual, there's a diagram. Will tell you the angle in degrees
yeah.
that you go to the windward mark, and you get to the windward mark, and you go down the wind, and you put it so many degrees to the right, and then the guys on the committee boat sets the pin, and then you set it to the lure, but it's all on a table. It's 265 to here. If the windward mark is this, these are the two dimensions from the mark to the next mark. It's all written down. You can do it a lot better if you have a nice round lake.
Sure. That's what
Well,
I thinking. You got the ocean with one
well,
steady
no,
breeze for a whole
actually-
day.
Yeah.
Actually, Lake Cheney will let you do it because it is a pie pan in the prairie.
Right.
It's a big, huge lake, and when the wind blows, they'd say the gorilla has arrived. And when the wind doesn't, you can sit there for 3 hours and
not
spit
miss
in
it.
the water, and it doesn't move. And you're never really sure of what you're going to get there. But when you get more serious, let's say you go to Perry or you go to any place,
Mhm.
and they say I want a really nice triangle because we're racing the ultimate 20s, and they need so many degrees reach.
Okay.
So that's when you got to say, okay, well, the windward mark is here, and they need so many degrees. This is where I want to put the jibe mark, and down that way. And if you're doing a one design class, you need to read their class rules,
Yeah.
because they will have rules and regulations on what you can and can't do during the race. The Lightnings used to have a rule: cannot shorten course.
Really.
But here, races must be 2 hours long, or they will not count. So you need to have all that in your little brain before you start.
That's a
And
whole lot of the course for a lightning to go for 2 hours. It's a lot of
That's a lot-
laps or something, right?
That's a
It's-
fast boat though.
it takes a lot of lake. If you can just visualize on Giacomo, the sea scow has got to give the Sweet 16 12 minutes an hour. So if you do last Saturday's races, the sea scow the Sweet 16 would be almost rounding the leeward mark. Remember we had 45-minute races?
Right, yeah.
Well, it would be 15 minutes. So the 16 would be almost at the start-finish line when the scow started.
Right,
And they would end up together.
right.
So that's what you got to get through your head of how fast the boats go over the water. And if you got a boat like the Lightning, which is a little slower than the Scout, but it carries a big spinnaker, you'd like to give them a nice spinnaker reach, if possible.
Mhm.
So the sea course we had would be great because they come off of there and get
Long downwind
get a
run.
nice downwind leg. But it's you're dictated what their class rules and the sailing instructions are there.
Okay.
And if you get serious and you go somewhere, you ask for, email me the sailing instructions.
Yeah.
Email me the class rules for the Y flyers. And if you got a question, you say, okay.
Get all that stuff done before you get there.
Well, yeah, because sometimes some of the stuff is totally unfamiliar to you, but you're just stuck with some of their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They asked me to come up 2 years in a row to do the Iowa Interlakes Championship which was being a conjunction of the Catalina 25s Nationals.
Okay.
25s had 40 boats,
Wow.
and we had two separate courses, just used the same starting line. And the reason they got the Nationals because last year the guy from Pella Lake won it, and that's what the rules were. If you win it, your club's got to host it the next year. And he had about as much idea of running a race, and the Catalina had 3 different sail plans, and he picked the handicap number, which was his boat, and that's what they handicapped on. Well, guess what? He won again. Changed the rule. But I went up there and I said, "Oh no, so and so won't work with the judge." And I said, "Fine, see ya." There's no sense being up there if they view you as competition
Right.
or whatever. I was also a senior judge for 38 years, as well as a race officer. And sometimes you get welcomed, sometimes you don't. They don't like your decisions, but as long as you're consistent,
Sure.
people they asked me if we're going to have a regatta down in Arkansas. Is the guy in the red and green socks available? See, and you just do your best. But if you're smart, you read ahead. You get to know the race committee chairman, and you go out the morning of the event and you look over the equipment and you say, "Oh, where's your flags?" They said, "Oh my God, I think they dropped them in the lake last week." And he said, "Well, look, I got a spare set of flags in the car. We'll just use those." I went up and did the Iowa Interlakes. They wrote the sailing instructions. I was driving a 1970 Duster.
Dodge Duster.
Got there, asked for the flags. We don't have any flags. We got the red, white, and blue, which was the starting signal in those days.
Okay.
So I said, okay. Sat down that night and I wrote a set of sailing instructions. The red and white flag was postponed. That's how we wrote them. And we made one copy and posted it on the bulletin board.
Did anybody see them?
Well, I did 168 boats.
Oh,
And they gave the regatta chairman this great big trophy, and I slept in the back seat of the Duster because by the time I got done that night, they'd sold my bed because it was the Iowa girls softball tournament. So, but basically, I enjoyed racing. I enjoyed racing more than running races or judging, but times change.
Yep.
So, do the best you can with what you got, and just
Well, that's the best advice that we as learners can use.
Yeah.
You do the best you can.
do the best you can. And and if somebody said, "Well, why did you do that?" You got to have a good reason. Like, well, that's what the rule book says. Oh,
Yeah.
you know, or when we did the lightnings, and people would turn over in the old days, they were out of the race. That was the rule with the lightning, over and out, because in those days, 90% of them were wood, and very few of them even had airbag flotation. So the boat would come
Chances
up,
of them getting over
wouldn't come up
anyways.
swamped. So you'd get the race and they towed them ashore. And they even had a pump. Pull them next to the dock,
Suck
put
'em
the
out.
siphon in there. So
okay.
where are we at on here?
Anyway, so we tried to set something close to what's on the course diagram, but it's not real exact. But we do try to mix it up to keep it fresh. Another note: when I'm setting marks for the race course, I try to back that John boat away from the mark. That helps keep the prop from wrapping the anchor rod, and throw it out and then back away from that mark. So because 2 or 3 times I've wrapped the anchor rod around the prop.
And no knots in the anchor lines, no loops or nothing.
Right.
Yeah, because they get tight and you can't get them open.
And they won't hit bottom. And we got one that's marked 40 feet. That's if you go down to the dam. That's the only one you got with it. Hit ground out there without a second anchor.
And even that one's a little bit short. I attach a second anchor to it
Right.
to so to make sure it hits bottom. I read someplace that in the new book they do now allow for GPS waypoints as a mark. It doesn't have to be a physical mark anymore. However, I've looked through there and I can't find where it specifically says that. But
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how you could do that with.
Well, we're not going to do it on this lake.
Yeah, we're not going to do it on this lake, but I don't know how you could do that without, I guess making sure that everyone in the fleet has a
Everybody's
phone.
got to have
Rule
GPS.
27.
Yeah,
There's no electronic devices that isn't available to every boat.
to every boat. Yeah.
And if one guy, brought his abacus with him and nothing else, then hey, we're speaking in Chinese.
Right.
That's Rule 27.
Oh, okay.
Just had to throw that out there.
Well, I read that.
I mean, I participated in a race in February, and the finish line was just 2 waypoints.
Yeah, but that was an ocean race.
Yeah,
That
it was an ocean race. Yeah.
Big. That's different. And
Right.
that boat had a GPS tracker
Right,
on
right,
it,
right,
so they knew
exactly.
if you actually went through it or not. So I could see where that would work if you're doing a round the world race or something. Your next race.
We
It's 7 years.
last
I'll pay for you.
couple weeks ago we had a race and we used the W designator for
Yes.
the course
Remember
with a
that.
downwind finish, and all the boats finished except for 2, and just did 1 lap, and except for 2 boats, Fred and Phil. And they went ahead and did 2 laps. Well, because the diagram clearly shows 2 laps around the
2.5.
2.5, yeah. And I like the downwind finish as an option. Because it's a nice something else to throw into the mix.
Mm-hmm.
But my suggestion to Fred was to ask for redress on that race, and I still think he was entitled to it because he got a I don't know, 6 or 7 because he finished last, and he should have finished first.
But 2 laps were posted.
No, one lap.
Well, yeah,
So-
but instead of 2.5, it was 1.
Yes,
What if we'd have posted 3?
It should have. If a 1 should have been windward, leeward, windward, leeward.
No, it's not a. It's. You're talking too many legs. This is laps.
No, yes. If it was 2 laps, it would have been 4 because it is. For a W, there's 2,
Like
two
just-
laps
just-
around it. It's the same as an F. You would do,
An F is
if you do a 1.
An F is a course all in its own.
Yes.
Just like the Olympic course,
Right.
all in its own.
So-
the W is 2.5 here. So 1 lap is you start at the committee boat, you go up around the windward mark, and you go down.
Well,
That's all there is 1 lap.
Yeah,
From the
I
committee boat to the first mark, back to the committee boat, that's 1 lap. If you go the second time, you go around the leeward mark, like everybody else did,
Right.
and you finish.
Now-
well,
Here's
That's confusing,
the confusion. On our schematic,
right.
it says 2.5, but that's not what's posted on the board. Our board said 1 lap.
Right.
He was going off the schematic that says W is always 2.5 laps.
Exactly.
It's not.
No, it's like the triangle being 2 or 3
You have-
laps, or 1.
You can have a 1 lap in that W.
Yeah.
You can have 1 lap there
Can-
on the board.
Let's say, what if it's an M?
Sure.
Triangle. Okay. It's an M. What's 1 lap?
Well, one lap would be all around one time around all 3
Back
3 marks.
to the start to the finish.
Right.
Okay, what's 2 laps?
2 laps would be twice around.
Okay.
But this clearly shows a windward leeward and then a second windward leeward, and that is one W.
But remember, this is only examples.
Doesn't say
Yeah,
this
It
is the
doesn't- you
course.
have to go by what is posted on the board.
Right.
I'm gonna have
And
to
if
read
there
our
was-
sticker.
And if this is
for example, take the F. The F
Okay.
is a windward leeward and then or a triangle
Right.
and a windward leeward. So if you had that posted as a 2, then you would do two. You would do a windward. You would do a triangle and then a windward leeward and then another triangle and another windward
That's why
leeward.
you can't post it as 2.
Yeah, that's why you can't post it as a 2 because an F is 2 times
It's already
around.
two.
It's already 2.
Already?
So,
So is
so the W and the F are. I mean, I realize one is a triangle, but they're the same number of times around.
right.
Same number of legs.
Same number of legs. But the problem is there's a confusion. And we need to
But the
address
thing
this.
is, for a W, if there would have been a 1 on the board instead of having it on here as a 2.5, you're still only going through the start line, down and around and back once.
If I would, not know anything, I look at that, I'm thinking that in order to run the W, you've got to go all the way around and back down again, like it shows there.
Look
The
at,
But-
2.5
but again,
times.
look at
That's-
T,
that
it's the
is
same
considered
thing.
W,
Yeah.
isn't it?
T is 1 1/3. So
So
you're telling me if we put 2 T's up here, that we've got to finish at the top?
well, if you set that as a 2, well, then there'll be 2 times around.
Right.
So to be consistent with all of these course diagrams, we need to figure out.
Yeah, I mean, but
We need to make it abundantly clear.
Well,
You know-
what do you think it should be?
Well,
We've got 800,000 stickers.
yeah,
Exactly. What do the stickers say?
well, the sticker, the stickers say what this is.
Okay.
This is what the stickers
in
say.
defense of what we did. Okay. These diagrams are not the holy grail of what the course is. You have to go by what is on the board. The W1 is 1 lap down and back.
If this was
Well, the W.
if this was the Holy Grail, we never could run starboard courses.
Well, yeah.
Right.
So, you
Yeah,
know,
I get-
it's an example. And the one next to him is the same way.
These are
the T.
examples.
It
Right.
shows you if we just did a T1, you'd finish down here. You wouldn't go to
T1.
another
Yeah,
third.
right.
of-
Right.
Okay,
Well,
it's-
yeah, we definitely have an issue here in the fact that we don't like to move the committee vote and have the start line,
Right.
finish line in different spots.
It probably could use some explaining. There's no doubt about that.
yeah.
And you and I don't totally agree.
No, I don't agree.
But that's part of sailing. I mean, that's the way it goes.
So
But-
is W actually 2.5 laps or no? W is just the way the flags are set up,
This is-
or the
this
way
is-
the pins are set
if-
up.
if
It
you
doesn't
look-
have anything to do with how many laps.
This is the
are.
course board. This is the course board. Okay, you have a W for the course.
Which is just
and
a
This
windward
one,
leeward
this
pin.
is an example saying 2.5.
Okay.
Whereas if we had a 1 there, we would have a 1 lap example.
You can actually get rid of, let's go up here.
So that could make the confusion.
Here,
if you
here.
made every one of those just one lap version.
Let's do this.
Well, but so how do you deal with an F then?
Here.
Because an F, you got the triangle, and then you got the windward leeward. You know, if you that's a 1.
But
Right.
that can still be just all just
Okay,
one
now-
lap, right?
Okay. Start finish line.
Okay.
W course.
Okay.
Put a mark here. It starts. 2 laps. Finish.
That's
Now,
yes.
now, what we do is go by the diagram, get rid of putting the mark there. Now we got the pin. It's the same thing. There's the pin, there's the committee vote. You start, go around the pin. We say we can set it above or below, but
right.
you can actually get rid of that mark and put it there.
Yeah.
And they come up and they finish.
But you're going around the marks 2 times. to make
One
one W.
lap.
To make
One
one
lap.
W.
No, it isn't. One is windward lured. That's what it says. Windward. It didn't say windward lured. It's windward lured. It's one. There.
Okay.
But that's the way it is. Now, if we don't agree, we can
Number on
just
the board.
we can do better to explain to everybody else.
Well, when you do
two
just
lap.
one lap, it's more of an I than a W.
I is in the middle.
Well,
That's the difference.
Well, I realize
That's
that there's a discrepancy in where the pin where the line is, but if you're going to use a W and you have the pin the line down below, you also are having a discrepancy with where the pins are for start and finish
Sure.
line.
So the
right.
way you would reduce your confusion is in the future you make all of your examples one lap. So every example shows one lap.
Yeah,
One lap.
yeah.
Yes.
These are all should be all one lap
Yeah, and they're
examples.
And
Is
they're
what,
not.
is
But
that what you're saying?
They didn't do it that way. So we're stuck with it. So
Well, this
So-
is, we don't have a choice. This is what you got to use. For
Yeah, and all of our stickers are this.
Yeah.
Right.
So we need to set our marks, or set our courses according to this, but we have to come to a conclusion as to what is a one lap course.
What is a W course? How many times around?
one lap is from the committee vote to a mark and back for a W.
No, I like what Wes said. These all show one lap courses.
They don't.
No, that's what
They
I'm saying
don't.
is they should show.
They
one
should
lap.
show it,
Yes.
but
they-
this shows
Two
two and a half, which is this is the example. This is what's on the course board. If that had a 1 on it, you would only see the 1
Yeah.
when we're lured down and back.
Then that's not a W. That's an I.
No, and
No,
I
it's
is
not
start
an
and
I
finish in the
because an
middle.
I is you starting in an I. You're starting in the middle, going
Right.
windward, down to lured, and back. Whereas a
W
W
is you're starting at the
is
top.
you're starting at the top.
Or
At the bottom.
at the
Or
bottom.
You're starting at the bottom, going up to the top, coming
Back
back,
to the bottom.
down to the bottom,
That's the finish.
and that's it. Unless you're doing more than one lap. And that's when you set that lured or that downwind wind pin either before or after the line.
Because when you race them, and we had it one lap, we often race them with 2 laps for the slow boats and 3 laps for the fast boats.
Okay.
Okay, you go up and around, and you go around and around. Whenever you're on your second lap, ready to come downwind, that mark doesn't exist for you. It exists for the sea scow right behind you because he's got to go around it, but you don't. You just finish.
It's not a mark of the leg that you are
That's
on.
right,
Right.
and that's what it was. It was a mark for the scows because these guys only had 1 lap. That mark could have been not. If you'd have picked it up, it would have been better.
Well,
That's
we
better.
need-
We got to realize that these are only examples, and
Okay.
that's that's why it says 2.5 here.
well, we need to make some clarity
Yeah.
because
Right.
I believe that.
I agree with the clarity.
See, we all agree on
But
that. We
if-
need more clarity.
If we would have had
I could run for
the
president on
mark
that. I
here
need more
saying
clarity.
W1, you wouldn't have all these lines. You'd have just one up and down.
Well, I don't read it that way. I read it as that is.
At 2.5, it's right. Back it up and then finish up there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
if
right,
you
that's
write
correct.
2.5 on the bottom, 2.5 laps, then yes, then you would be right on that course.
Okay.
If you write a 1 at the bottom, it's only an up and down.
If you use that for the example, if a half a lap is from here to here, okay, that's 2.5. That's 1/2 lap. The other lap is from here to there. So 1 lap is from here to there.
Okay.
Anyway, we need to get back on
Yeah.
All
that.
right. All right. Anyway, we're not going to finish that.
Well, hey,
Anyway,
this is exactly why you need training sessions.
exactly.
Exactly.
Okay. Chapter 11. Getting boats to check in has been a problem. It's been a problem, a growing problem for quite some time. It's in our sailing instructions that they're supposed to check in, but we've got a lot of new competitors, especially the groups that are sailing club boats. The race committees do not know all the new people, the new faces in the club, and then they're using different boats. One day they're using a day sailor, next day they're using a Sea Scout, next day they're using a Sweet 16. We gotta figure out a solution to the being able to identify boats and their skippers. That's one of the
And
problems.
as easy as that sounds, any kind of a breeze with flapping sails, you are hard put to hear
Yeah.
anything more than 10 feet away. Your guy comes by, I'm John Smith.
Right.
It's been a difficult thing for the race committee. I want to get people credited for their races.
That's right.
They deserve that.
You never have a problem hearing me, do you, Bernie?
No.
So,
But,
I mean, in my mind, the quick solution is the answer's already there. The race, doesn't it tell you got to go in and check in?
We're supposed to.
Okay,
Yeah.
so then we just need to
We
reiterate.
need to start enforcing that.
Yeah,
Well, we need to
so-
practice it at the club level,
Yeah, exactly. So
where
we
it's
just
very casual.
we
and
start
nobody's
saying,
hurt,
hey,
kids hurt.
send out an email. Hey guys, we're having trouble with so many different people. Please remember to check in, and then start hitting that repeatedly.
Right.
And then when they're getting ready to go, hey, don't forget to check in when you go out, type of deal. So that just that we need to set up some sort of a reminder deal, because the answer's already what we're supposed to do. So we just need to figure out how to
Get them to do it.
remind people to do it.
And that's part of my job, is send out those blast emails, reminders. So I haven't done it.
But actually, people get overloaded with blast emails. So I think a more effective way is stroll down the rigging line
Yeah.
and have a chat with every sailor. But we got to get a volunteer to do that, to remind them. Just another opportunity for people to volunteer.
Here you go.
No limits.
Okay.
And you don't have to be a racer or a sailor per se. You could be crew.
Exactly.
Preparatory flags. The preparatory flag can be any one of these flags.
Right.
We normally use the P flag, which are there's no penalty flag. In the regatta, we used the I flag. So we got the committee boat, we got the pin, we got the start line, and we got the number 1 pin. So with the I flag, if you are within a triangle made by the pin, the committee boat, and the number 1 mark, so this area here, if you are within that area in the last minute before the start, then you have to go around the end to start the race. So if you're over early, or you're just
Which is what happened to you last week.
Apparently.
then you have to go up and around the end. That's the I flag. There's no penalty, time penalty or score penalty for that.
So that's from the time when the I flag comes down.
That's when when the I flag comes down, but before the warning signal comes down.
Okay.
That very last minute.
Okay.
You can be sailing up here all day you want, but you have to be behind the start line before the warning flag comes down. The next flag is the Z flag, and now that's a 20% scoring penalty if you're in this zone. So, for example, we had 15 Sweet 16s. 20% of 15 boats is 3 boats.
Okay.
So if you're over the line in the last minute, then you'll go ahead and start and do your race. And let's say you came in 5th place, your score is then it's automatically you're knocked down to an 8,
Okay.
and that's your 20% scoring penalty.
Gotcha.
So are
And,
these,
and,
are these-
and nobody moves up, and you could have 2 8s.
okay.
Oh,
Okay.
All right.
So the rest of them don't move up.
For
So there's
point-
just no
for
3 now,
points
or no
made.
5, whatever it was. There's just no 5.
No,
It's just now
There's
2
2 8s.
Okay.
there's 2 8s.
Are these flags like cumulative? So
No,
if
no,
you're-
no,
if
they're
you're
one,
on the-
you're only going to get one of them.
Okay.
You're
So
gonna
the Z
get that.
flag, you don't have to go around the end again.
No, you pay
You
the
just-
20%.
Boom, it's 20%.
Yeah.
The next is the U flag, which
Well,
is blue and white.
They let me skip to the black flag. The black because the U flag is actually a new flag this quad.
Okay.
But the black flag, what? The black flag,
I heard
uh,
the black flag kills all the blood.
yes.
All the bugs.
That's a good way to
You
put
never
it.
want to see the black flag.
If you are that is for very aggressive starters, and you you got fleets that are really pressing the line, and you've started it 2 or 3 times, and you can't get a good start. You have to do general recalls. And you so you on the next start, the 4th try to get this race going. You go to the black flag, and that means if you are over early, you're DSQ automatic. No recourse of any option. The U flag.
I've been in those races.
Yes.
The U flag is they call it black flag light,
Okay.
and it's new this quad, and it's the same penalty. Your DSQ, but however, if they restart the race. If the race is abandoned and they restart it, then you can come back and
It goes away.
that goes away. Whereas the black flag, you're
Even
out.
if they restart it, you're
even if
still
you're
out.
you're still out.
Never wanted to see the black
Yeah.
We, as a typical rule, we like to start the slowest fleet first. That way, that they can be kind of finishing about the same time as the fast boats. However, that can also be adjusted by number of laps and things. So, for example, sometimes we'll throw the Sea Scouts first, but give them 3 or 4 laps, whereas the 16s might only do 2 laps.
We had a nice breeze a month ago, and the Scouts did an F twice. Triangle with.
Yep.
No. C twice, and the 216 did 1 triangle, and we finished up together.
Yeah.
That worked out great. So you can fiddle that way.
You start racing at the preparatory signal. That's when the P flag goes up. That's when the racing rules all kick in. So before the racing rule, before the P flag going up, the race committee can talk and answer questions to the competitors if they sail by.
Okay. Yeah, that was a question I was going to ask. Is
Yeah,
when do we have to mute
yeah, P flag.
P flag?
Because at that point, Rule 44, outside help, was it 41? I can't remember. 41. Once the P flag goes up, then Rule 41 would start kicking in, and you can't have outside help. But before the preparatory signal goes up, we can offer help
So
because
as
you
a-
are not racing.
So as a response to a question, all you have to say is P flags up.
You can be polite. You say P flag's up. I can't help. Right?
Yeah,
I can't answer
I
you.
can't answer.
And you also gotta be aware of
look at the sailing instructions.
What you're saying may not be what he's hearing, even when you're allowed to say it.
That's a very good point.
And like, so how many minutes to the starting time? 4. He starts early. But you told me it was 3 minutes. You told me it was 6 minutes. The less you can say, the better off you really are. That's just as And the bigger and more important the races, you don't talk to the competitors, except write it on the bulletin board, do it by flags. Because
And I think in a couple of years we'll all be on.
no, I don't know about that. But it's just, it can come back and bite you in the ass really bad. Even in casual conversation ashore.
Really?
I did a regatta where I got there late from work and I was in my gray work clothes, and we went into the restroom at the lake, and these three guys from Oklahoma were telling me how they were going to team race, which was illegal in this. It was a U.S. Sailing Championship finals for REF, and you go to nationals. And these two guys, we were going to team race. We're going to cover everybody else, and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm standing at the journal. They taking the whiz. And we get out of there, and I go in the bathroom, and I change and come out with my wedding gown whites, and we come around the corner, and you never saw three stunned guys.
Oh man.
We had, in the old days, you didn't have to fly a code flag B for a protest, anything suitable, and we had a major collision on the lake, and the guy on the catamaran, as he was sinking, held up his crew's life jacket, which was red, and they limped in the shore. Well, I was up in the bathroom, and the guy that hit him says, was there any protest? And I'd already left the committee boat, and I said, I didn't see any. Well, he didn't show up for the hearing. So we heard it the next Saturday morning in the dry sail lot. And he said, nobody told me, and he didn't fly a flag. And I said, well, I wasn't on the committee. They made a decision. They recognized the jacket as the flag. And I said, besides, look at the big black hole in your boat.
Yeah.
So, you know, and
There's a hole in your boat. It's a pretty good idea as a
it's
protest.
pretty much something happened. and you had a reason to show up with the committee.
Right.
But this is what you gotta do it by the rules. You gotta be fair to the contestants. That's our whole job is being fair. So
And interpretation of the rules.
The AP flag, the cat in the hat, the white, is your best friend before the start. Any problems, throw that sucker up and postpone and then fix the problems. Take your time fixing them. There's no particular rush to fix it. Take a deep breath and make sure everything's square.
just fix it once.
Yeah, fix it once.
Do it once, do it
Take
right.
time to fix it once.
Right.
And then remember, you still got a minute after the P flag comes down before you do your warning flags. Everything we do is a minute. So with our system, it's pretty straightforward.
Right.
Flag comes down, minute later, next flag goes up. And if we do like we try to do and keep the warning flag on the same side as the pin, the competitors, it's easy for them to see. There's no rule in that. It could be anywhere on the committee boat. But the best thing is if nobody's over early and the starts go off on time, there's nothing on the committee boat to distract the competitors. The guy can see he's close and there's no flags.
Go.
Just go. Just go.
Hailing boats that are OCS, on course side. There is no provision in the rule to hail the boats. That would have to be put into the sailing instructions that you're going to hail. But my thinking is it's a bad idea to attempt to hail boats that are on over early. Number one, it's the skipper's responsibility to know whether they are or not, and if there's any doubt, then they should do their penalty or whatever it is.
Restart.
I restart. I got a hit on that on the first race last Saturday.
The best thing you can use is a different sound signal
Yeah,
than the start.
I like a different sound.
Beep, the air horn, a big loud whistle, so that they know it's not another air horn, like 3 air horns are going to be
Right.
abandoned. So starting signal, over early signal.
Over the flag goes up, and
Yep.
then there's like air horn or something.
Air horn,
Whatever,
whistle,
stays up
something
for-
different than the starting
Stays up
horn.
for 4 minutes or until when they come back, and that's the only time you say all clear, because the skipper coming back got to cross the line. And if he goes over and his transom is still on the line and he turns, he hasn't cleared. But when his transom clears, then the guy on the line says, all clear,
Okay.
and then you go back. You don't dip it. It stays up, and if nobody comes back, it stays up for 4 minutes and then goes down, and you write down OCS. Now they can still come back later, but that was the only signal that you're required to give them.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think a case can be made that if you do hail a boat that is OCS, then you are in fact guilty of Rule 41 violation. You are in fact helping them to the detriment of all the other racers out there. Plus, if the line is long, you got a lot of flapping sails. The guys out there on the far end are never going to hear that hail. So
Last weekend,
yeah,
John.
No, I think we were just having too much darn fun.
I think
I'll be
it's,
honest.
You were over by a whole 5 minutes.
Well, yeah. You were,
I think it's a kind of a bad idea to be
We must have had our
hailing
timing
numbers.
wrong.
Okay, last thing I wanted to kind of talk about is Rule 18.3 and starboard roundings. There is a lot of talk on YouTube about the new rules of Rule 18.3 and starboard rounding. In the current rule, at the port rounding, if a boat is making a port advance, you got two boats, and the boat on port tack or starboard tack is coming around the mark, okay, and he is fetching the mark. You got a port tack boat approaching, and he's going to attack inside of the zone. He cannot cause the starboard tack boat to sail above close hauled to making the rounding. Okay, that's the way the rule is written right now.
Right.
But that is on a port rounding mark. The starboard tack boat that is fetching the mark cannot be forced above close haul course, so that a port tack boat can sneak in there and go around the mark.
Gotcha.
Okay. However, that provision is yes.
Where does the 30 foot or the 3 boat length comes into play?
So you're inside.
Yeah,
You're inside
you're
the 3 boat lengths,
already
yeah.
inside the 3 boat length mark.
Gotcha.
Okay, all of that has gone away in the new rule book for a starboard rounding boat, starboard rounding. Your same scenario, you have a port tack boat that is fetching the mark to be
Okay.
left to starboard. You have a starboard tack boat that is tacking inside of the zone. Here's our zone, and he's going to come up here and he's going to tack around the mark. This is apparently causing a lot of issues because in the new rule book, the starboard tack boat can in fact run the port tack boat all the way up to head to wind.
Yeah.
Ooh,
He can run that
yeah,
boat
yeah.
all the way up.
as opposed to
Before
close
he-
haul.
Yeah,
Before he's
Yeah,
finding
it used to be that you could not force him above close haul, and at least on the stuff on YouTube, they're suggesting race committees do not run starboard rounding races because of this issue. And it does happen because it happened to me. I was in this exact scenario last Saturday.
Yeah.
Bob Asher was coming in on coming in on a port
Starboard
tack,
tack.
and he was fetching, and I was coming in on starboard and doing this exact same scenario. there is even a fellow that makes a point that let's say you get in here real close,
Okay.
and the starboard tack boat comes up, and he comes just past head to wind. So now then, rule 11 turns off.
Oh, he becomes lured boat.
Yes,
But with overlap,
he
yes.
becomes leeward boat
But
with
overlap,
right of way.
Because he's still on starboard, see?
Yeah, he hasn't fallen off onto a close hull course, so he still has to give this boat room and right of way. But he is also on the same tack, so same tack and overlap. So Rule 11 now turns on once he comes past head to wind. So now they're both on the same tack. So if he continues on, he can literally run right over top of the mark, because he can't force his boat up because he hasn't completed his come down to a close hull course, and he can actually run completely over the mark and ask for exoneration and receive exoneration for hitting the mark because he tacked so tightly in the mark.
even if he's on that same tack, how does overlap then work? I mean, when he comes up and he's
Your definition of overlap. Definition of overlap is across,
Right.
if you're ahead of the transom. So these two boats are they're overlapped clear back down over here.
So overlap is
Is a line. If you extend a line square out from your transom,
okay.
that's your that's your overlap line. And if this boat is in front of that line, then you are in fact overlapped. So
And what does that do or mean? I don't understand that.
well,
That's when Rule 11 kicks in.
that's when
Rule 11
that's when
kicks in.
Rule
Yeah.
11
Yeah,
kicks
go
in.
back to Rule 11.
Anyway, there's some interesting stuff on YouTube about this scenario.
Yeah.
And how does it work on when you're now on port rounding?
Well, now in port
As
round,
soon as you go past head to wind, then you're you
yeah,
should-
on a port rounding mark, then a starboard tack boat and its fetching cannot be forced above a
Right.
close hull course.
right, but the opposite you can.
Yeah, you can run them clear up to,
Yeah.
all the way up to head to wind.
That's what I thought. Okay, I got you. I thought you were saying something else that I would have to give way. All right.
But
Right.
there's some
Right.
interesting things on the YouTube about starboard rounding marks. And now for our club, it doesn't. I mean, it's not. We're not that competitive, so that it's really causing too much of a problem. However,
It's something to be aware
it's
of.
something to
Something
be aware of.
of if we go out to a different lake.
Or
different club
let's say
or
we
something like that, yeah.
run an event that we're having a lot of
Right.
heavy competitors that are really aggressive sailors. Something to think about.
Would be best not to do it.
Best not to run starboard tack route.
Right.
Gotcha.
If we know we have 5
Avoid it.
Freds on board.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Exactly.
Okay.
Sorry,
Anyway.
Fred.
Look on YouTube for Rule 18.3 problems.
18.3 problems.
Yeah, mark rounding issues. There's some very interesting things on there on YouTube about that. Okay, it's almost 9 o'clock, so we've kind of exhausted our time. I think that we've hit all the highlights of chapter 11, 10 and 11. And next time we meet, we'll go over 12 and 13, I think it is, and that's the end of the book. unfortunately, I'm out of town for the next couple of weeks, and then we got a class in here, so I'm thinking our next class will be August 30th.
August 30th? Okay.
Right. And we'll see if we can't conclude the
Can we
the book.
get that on the schedule?
Sure can.
Throw the book back, please.
What was?
Yeah,
One of these is.
I'm gonna have to have Doug Day go over that one with me again. Because that was the one where Lynn Atkins,
Yeah,
after I chickened out,